Hey guys, Ponce here on the PBE, here to talk to you guys about some rather extensive changes to the utility mastery tree. Now, given the timing being, this is the middle of the season, I find that rather curious since they tend to do that more at the beginning of seasons. But yeah, I put the actual values down on the screen. They should be in like the top left-hand side of the screen or something like that. So you can check those out for yourselves, but I'm just kind of going to briefly go over all this stuff. So first off, they've swapped places for the expanded mind and meditation. So it used to be that the meditation, the icons are same, so they look the same. But the old meditation thing, the regen thing, used to be at the top, and the mana thing used to be at the bottom. And they've shuffled the numbers around a bit as well. So just to kind of quickly go over that, expanded mind used to be, that was the one that was 3.5, 5% maximum mana, depending how many points you had in it. Now it just gives you a flat amount, regardless of how much you actually have. 25, 50, 75. So it sort of makes sense because, if they're going to swap it into the first tier, giving someone percent mana is not really going to do very much since typically people barely have any mana at all at the beginning. Now, ultimately, if you get crap tons of mana, that's a nerf. But again, this is now a tier 1 utility tree thing. And so yeah, to go into meditation, which is of course the whole mana regen thing. Now this gives you or rather what it used to do, I suppose, was the 1, 2, and 3 MP5 thing. The thing used to be up here when you like to waste mana. That's the thing you got. Now it's down here, and it's almost like a mini Vagar passive. So it gives 0.5, 1, 1.5 missing mana every 5 seconds. Now this is actually, I find, the most personally impactful. Might not have much to do with you, but I'm going to talk about it because I'm self-centered. But on champions that go top lane, that tend to be relatively mana hungry, for example, like my Jarvan, when I'm playing Jarvan, I like to put 3 points into meditation because it would basically allow me to more or less continuously spam his Q. And now I can't do that, which is a bit unfortunate. I did the math on it because, I wanted to. And it works out that the 75 mana you get is outscaled by the 3 MP5 after 2 minutes. So, let's say you start fighting at the 2-minute mark. By the 4-minute mark, if you've been regenerating mana constantly, after the 4-minute mark, you're basically losing mana thereafter. Which is not good for me, again, personally, and possibly for you as well, because typically I don't intend to back within the first 2 minutes. If I do, it's either something really bad happened or something really good happened, and I got first blood or something. So, I don't know about that. We'll see. It probably impacts you less if you take teleport, but then if you take teleport, you're not worried about mana at all. An interesting thing. So it kind of seems like utility tree in that small change there is a lot less about dipping into it very quickly. You don't get quite as much from it, but I'm going to talk about utility tree balance as a whole at the end of this video, but overall it does seem like utility tree as a whole is more solid, but it's less about, dipping quickly into it. So next we have inspiration. That's the whole EXP thing that gets ignored by a lot of people. EXP gains while near high-level allied champions has been increased from 5 to 10. So they just straight up doubled that, which kind of tells you the old version was probably garbage if they can afford to just straight up double it. But then again, maybe this change might not go through alive. Who knows? They are experimenting with stuff. Next we have the intelligence thing. That's the thing down here. What they did is they changed the item CDR portion of it, the item active thing. Used to be 4, 7, 10%. Now is 8, 14, and 20%. So again, that was straight up doubled as well. That's a pretty significant change. With all these changes, it really does give me the impression that Riot sort of agreed with my own opinions. The utility tree was rather lackluster, but again, we'll get to that in a second. And lastly, we have Wander. The out-of-combat movement speed value changed from 5% movement speed to just a straight 20 flat. Now, if you do the math on that, I believe if you start with 350 MS, you only get like 17 point something out of it or something like that. And you don't get 20 flat MS from the old 5% until you hit 400. Now, I can't remember if how that works with the non-base MS and whether this stuff is multiplicative or additive or blah, blah, blah. So, ultimately, I don't know if this is like a late-game buff or nerf or what, but at the very least in the early game, you're getting significantly more movement speed or out-of-combat movement speed. So, as I was saying, overall, I kind of always felt like the utility tree was fairly lackluster. I mean, I realize utility is utility. It's not about straight-up combat whatever, but regardless of that sort of principle, it always felt like utility wasn't giving you quite as much or enough compared to the other trees. Now, in again my personal case, it was somewhat exacerbated by the fact that I played nothing but tanky defensive supports, like Braum, stuff like that. And so, of course, I was going 0, 21, 9 and largely ignoring the utility master tree. Now, I still did play some utility things, but again, because of my playstyle and how I felt, how strong the numbers were in the defensive tree, even champions like Jana and how I was playing her, I felt the defensive tree was almost more effective a lot of the time. But yeah, I think utility tree is probably worth a bit more of a damn at this point. It's sort of interesting when I see a lot of these changes, especially to the item active stuff and the EXP gain stuff and the out of combat value changes. It almost seems like these changes are made with Bard in mind. They probably weren't. That seems almost a bit cynical. But I suppose utility tree is going to be a lot better for Bard, for what that's worth, and I'm sure for a lot of supports in general. So yeah, there you have it. Those are the changes there. Again, it's a bit unfortunate with the Jarvan thing, but I was thinking of changing up some other things with Jarvan anyway. That's entirely irrelevant. But yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate that the mana per 5 thing is no longer an option for mana hungry people in other lanes. But if you really do want the mana, you can get 75 flat for what that's worth. Anyway, I'll see you guys around, and thanks for watching. We'll see how much of this goes live.